Welcome back to Thriving in Ambiguity, the podcast where we break down the complexities of technology, ideally without losing our mind. I can't tell you how excited I am for today's guest. We're diving into the world of AI, and last week I teased that we would have Chris Carr from Dynamics AI, and hopefully Chris brought his virtual self along, as what he's doing in the AI space is really, truly amazing. Chris is an AI strategist, and he and I go back at least 25 years. In fact, I was one of his first customers when he launched his original company, Farotech, where his creative team thought up cutting-edge web design ideas and used SEO to kind of dial everything in. It was amazing, and we had a really great partnership. But Chris is really expanding now. He's branching out, and he now has a certification from MIT in generative AI. He's a national keynote speaker for NICA and MCAA, which specializes in enterprise construction. And Chris is really instrumental in helping businesses implement AI solutions throughout their organization with customized training and tool development, really just educating them on what's possible within the space, which is amazing. And honestly, given how central AI has become in both of our worlds, I thought it was the perfect time for us to collaborate. And we're going to explore what downstream AI is and how Chris is helping businesses make sense of it all. So Chris, let's dive in, brother. To hear your take, and why don't you let everyone know a little bit about yourself as well, maybe on stuff that I didn't touch on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's funny because we both run these podcasts and stuff like that, but Steve and I talk all the time. We talk Philly sports, we talk everything like that, but it's kind of fun over the years. We were on the same soccer team years ago, but our paths have always been doing the same things at the same time. And it's been kind of fun. And then I got into AI and you were like saying, hey, you know what, man, I'm on that track too. And it's stuff like that. And so it's just kind of funny. It was like, we've always been sort of running parallel. And so I think it's really cool how we're starting to converge and stuff like that again and again and again. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Like for me, I got exposed to AI sort of in a backwards way. I ran a podcast for marketing, got a guy on there. I thought I was going to talk to him about marketing. And this was like early 2020. He started talking about AI. Now at the time I thought AI was like the Terminator, but within 30 minutes of him being in the show, I looked at my business partner and I was like, hey, you know what? If even 30% of this is true, we're really going to be in a lot of trouble. Like it's going to take big bites out of what I do. And so I said, let's just try to get ahead of it. And then it was almost like a sport. Like I somehow just got good at it, and the more I practiced, the better I got. And the more I got hungry to know more, then wanted to get some formal training, did all that stuff at MIT. And then now I have a second company. It's called Dynamics, and we do AI training and AI strategy, because what I'm finding is I speak about 13 times a month. And what I find is about 97% of businesses aren't ready for the coming wave of AI. And if they are, they think it's a 10-year problem. And I'm telling them it's a 3-year problem.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you nailed it, because I think people think that it's way harder than it is. And I said, look, if you're going to create your own foundational model, it's super hard, right? Like the things that OpenAI and Anthropic, what they're doing, and the data scientists and the amount of hardware and data that they're putting together, super complicated, right? But using AI, and that's where you really live, like using AI and learning how to manipulate it, how to take, maybe some of those models and bring them in-house. Like that's not as difficult as people think, I think,
Yeah. Yep. And let's start there. So I go and I do this whole dog and pony show. I show all this cool stuff. I'm going to show you some of my experiments today. And there's someone's dying in the audience to be like, well, how safe is it? It's not secure. It's not all these things. And, I totally get that. And you absolutely have to think that way. And I'm like, hey, I'm not your priest or your rabbi. You have to trust your IT guy. But if security is blocking you, you never would have used the iPhone. You would have just stayed on a BlackBerry. If security would have stopped you, you never would have put things in the cloud, right? Now we're in the next phase. The cool things is we're talking with you is that when I'm like, hey, why don't we bring it on premises? Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's a big lift. And then I talk to you and you're like, no, it's not. We're good. We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that people need to get out in front of. Just like you said, like, you know, you as a company had to say, hey, how's AI going to impact me? And I better get out in front of it and learn it. Okay, so you did that. But now that so many people are starting to learn how to use generative AI, like in my last episode in talking about shadow AI, it's a real potential problem for people.
Mhm.
And because everyone's going to use it if it makes you more productive. And I think that's really what one of the things I want you to really to maybe express to people
Mhm.
how productive, generative AI can make individuals because,
Yeah.
with that being said, it's like it's unavoidable that people are going to use it. And then once they start using it, depending on how they're leveraging your
Mhm.
internal data, that's where the risk comes in.
Sure. Sure. But I mean, 80% of what you're doing it for is communication enhancement. And I promise you, we talk so much, like we communicate so much that doesn't even have any proprietary data in there. Meetings, scheduling,
Hmm.
communication back and forth, all of that stuff can be done at the speed of thought. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But if you're so afraid of the all of the other stuff, right? And you should have a policy for that. And I absolutely think you should. If that is preventing you from taking the first step, I think you're making excuses for yourself. ChatGPT's been around way too long. I can write an email in seconds. I can create a PowerPoint and I'll show you one today just by thinking about it, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And so I do think, I think that if you're only piloting right now, I used to think I would say, well, just let's get, you know, dip your foot in. I'm saying right now, you're at a spot now where you have to make up ground because if any one of your competitors is up to speed,
Mhm.
like I'm at a spot now, like I'm going to show you an experiment today where I do 40 hours worth of work in probably 5 minutes. I'm going to show this to you today.
Mhm.
Just think about if you had multiple people doing things at scale like that. How long before you're like, oh, I am Blockbuster?
Yeah, the speed of business, it just gets crazy, right? And if
Mhm.
you're able to harness that, you can
Yep.
just pump out way more content, way more information, whatever, solve way more problems for your customers
Yep.
and leave your competition in the dust.
And then add agents on top of that. And we'll talk about agents today. Agents are
Yes.
these little taskmaster AIs that you can do, and they work through automation and they just go off and they do these things while you're doing other things, and it's almost like cloning yourself, if you will, or at least cloning some of your tasks,
Mhm.
you know, like if I'm building agents, building multiple agents per employee, and you are still saying like, hey, you know what? I wonder if AI could write an email for me. You're, you got problems now. We're at a spot now. I definitely think we are in the phase 2 of this thing
Yeah.
where,
This is always evolving. I mean, just last week, what was it? Or maybe it was even this week, lose track of time. Sam Altman
Mhm,
comes out and says OpenAI is now going to support, memory across all of your information, like basically
mhm,
everything you've ever asked it. And why don't you elaborate on what's possible there? Because I really
yep,
think you just mentioned Asians. In my mind, um, to leverage agents, you really had to have that portion where it was able to know more about yourself and kind of keep that
yep,
history.
yep.
So this is super exciting.
I'll tell you something that's very interesting is that, well, I'll get into that, but so one of the first things that I saw, we have a mutual friend named Nate. He sent me this tweet. I still call it Twitter, even though it's
Yeah.
X, and he says, use this prompt. And it said, ChatGPT, now that you've known everything I've ever written to you, tell me 5 blind spots about myself. All right. And that I might not know. And it gave me 5 things and I shared it with my employees and they're like, I'm legitimately spooked. Like this thing has you down to a T. I shared it with my wife and she's just like, I don't like this. Meaning like it knows you a whole lot better than you know me. And, I've been married for going almost 15 years. So she stopped listening to me about year 3.
Well, I'm actually working on a little, it's so funny you say that. I'm working on a
Mhm.
little self experiment. The other day, I started writing my own like autobiography with the thought process of,
Yeah.
you know, giving AI really have a deep understanding of who I am and where I came from so that maybe it could point out blind spots or maybe offer
Mhm.
suggestions or maybe do a personality trait. I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing it,
Yep.
but I felt
Yeah.
like when it came out and it now has the ability to learn more, I said, well, I want it to know more about me,
Mhm.
um, to
Yeah.
make it more personal.
I did this thing. I spent about $500. I sent my dad a microphone and a really good camera. And every other Friday, I'm just interviewing him. And so what I did is I went to ChatGPT and I said, my dad was born in 1945 and we're going every year. I'm like, hey, what was it like? Who was your best friend in kindergarten? Who was your best friend in your neighborhood? What'd you do in your neighborhood? You know, stuff like that.
Hmm.
How old before you realized which brother was your favorite? Like all these questions were pre-asked by ChatGPT. Now I do it on Fathom, so I record everything. I have his video and stuff like that because I firmly believe that, you know, my dad's, he's almost 80. He's not going to be here forever, but I do believe that my kids are going to be able to interact not with his consciousness, but at least with everything that's stored in the memory, in his memory. And I do believe that I can even upload other things about where he was, where he lived, where he was from, sports that he, and it would know the things that he would have known just naturally, like even without
Hmm.
asking. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know, like what car was famous at this time, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, in theory, my kids are going to be able to interact and know my dad even long beyond his years.
And forget your
It's just,
kids. What about your kids' kids? You
I
know,
know. Yeah.
it
Crazy, right?
it's an amazing opportunity. And honestly, I've definitely thought about doing that as a business. I'm like,
Yeah.
people really should be able to record and
Mhm.
and get down because one of the things I find amazing is our kids who've grown up with technology, everything that they ever do is almost recorded real time.
Yep.
Whether it's their Snapchats or TikToks or whatever, they're constantly recording themselves and making their digital footprint is gigantic where we
Mhm.
we have like this line in the sand and it's like there's a point in time where like that stuff didn't exist. Like digital cameras when we were young didn't exist. It was film cameras and
Yep.
so and then so for our parents and our grandparents, if we're lucky enough to still have them around, that stuff
Mhm.
just none of that was around. So you may have some photos, okay, but really they have very little digital footprint. So being able to go back and ask them and capture that what's in
Yeah.
their mind and bring that back and then allow AI at some point because hey, with deep fakes, and I know you're going to talk a little bit about deep fakes,
Mhm.
but hey, it doesn't have to be a deep fake. It could be a representation of that person, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that is super eerie and super exciting all at the same time.
Yeah. So, couple comments on that. My mom died in 2022. We went for a funeral, and I looked through every photo book and stuff like that. I was literally looking for good pictures. I bet you in a whole life where she lived almost 80 years, I bet you she had less than 40 solid pictures, probably even less than 30 solid pictures. My daughter is 9. In her first year alone, I took 8,000 pictures just on my iPhone alone. It's like I photographed every breath. You know what I mean? You know, it's crazy. Let me show you this. I think you're gonna find this interesting. Welcome to the Dynamics AI podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr. Now let's talk about how we can help great businesses solve big problems using AI. Okay, this is kind of funny, but I'm the real Chris Carr, and you are an avatar that I built as a tool to help answer frequently asked questions about how to implement artificial intelligence into our clients and potential clients' businesses. That's right, Chris. I am an avatar. I've been developed as a custom GPT connected to an API. I've been trained on every one of your blogs, the transcripts from your podcasts, your company's standard operating procedures, and the key insights you've gathered from AI thought leaders. That's correct. My goal is to continuously add content to this program so that I can quickly address people's questions and issues. I look forward to helping our audiences think big using the power of artificial intelligence in their businesses. Now, that's a little bit of a parlor trick in the aspect of it's definitely Hey Gen. It's using 11 labs from my voice. It does engage with me, but there's a tremendous amount of latency. I had to do some post-production because the technology just wasn't there. That's about a year old. But
Hmm.
you can see how, like, that was the dumbest AI will ever be. Like, I will literally what I just did there, I'll be able to do in real time. I would, in theory, be able to talk to my entire, every standard operating procedure I have, every email I've ever written, everything that's in my Google Drive folder, everything like that. And I could theoretically talk to it like Jarvis from Iron Man. That's easily going to happen. There's a program, I don't have to turn it on, but it's called Tavis. And Tavis is a very low latency, like if there's a guy on a screen and you just talk to him. And I do it for HR. You know what? I have it right here. I'll show it to you just because I have it right up. I got lucky.
Let's go.
Hey everybody, this is Chris with Dynamics, and today I want to talk to you about how to create mock interviews using AI. I'm going to be talking about two different pieces of software here. The first one is called Tavos. You can find it at tavos.io, and the second one is called Sesame. Both of these technologies are in their infancy stages, but as you can see, they've got tremendous potential. So let's dive in.
Let's get this mock interview started. Thanks for coming in today. I'm excited to learn more about your experience as a project manager in web development. Can you start by telling me a little bit about your background and what makes you a strong fit for this role?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I started doing graphic design when I was in college and then really liked marketing and then thought, you know what, rather than being an artist, I thought it'd be really great if I could stand in the middle and work between clients and then our production teams. And so that's why I wanted to be a project manager.
That's a really interesting transition from graphic design to project management. It sounds like you were looking for a role that would allow you to bridge the gap between the creative and technical sides of the business, and also work closely with clients and teams. Can you tell me about a particularly successful project you've managed in the past and what your role was in its success?
Yep. So I did a website for a community service project that I was working on, and it went really well. And that's how I sort of got my hands dirty with working with WordPress and speaking with some other designers. And then I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I really like doing this. I wonder whether I could do this for a living.
That's terrific. It's great that you have hands-on experience with website development, specifically with WordPress, and that you've enjoyed collaborating with designers. As a project manager, being able to speak the language of your team members and understand the technical aspects of a project can be a huge asset. Now, I'd like to shift gears a bit and talk about communication skills, which are crucial.
All right, let's get started. Please have a seat. It's great to meet you. My name is Maya. So tell me, what excites you about the prospect of leading projects for our web development team? We'd love to hear what draws you to this specific role.
Yep. Thank you. I really like the world of marketing, and I always wanted to be a project manager, even when I was working some of my other jobs that were more like, working by the hour type jobs and stuff like that at the mall. And I thought, hey, you know what? If I ever get into the formal work world, I always wanted to be a project manager.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear such passion for project management. You mentioned working those hourly jobs while dreaming of this kind of role. What specific?
So I basically just did this lecture for a bunch of HR representatives, and I was just giving them examples of like what they could do. And what I was talking about, what they do a lot of times is they pre-screen people. You know what I mean? And what I really believe you can do is that with AI, I can get personalized assessments, quizzes, and do all of those screening calls. And then literally it remembers everything and it'll do an assessment. It'll look at nonverbal communication. It'll do all that stuff. So the first tool is called Tavis. The reason why I said that is it mirrors very similar to that thing that I was having where I was talking to myself. I also believe it'll be an experience way better than that when my kids talk to my dad in cyberspace. But you saw how smooth it was when I was using Sesame. Like she literally felt like she was in the room, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be all of that. I think it'll be all of that and more by the end of Q3 of this year.
Wow. So, boy, you got my head spinning right now. Because I hadn't really thought of that before, but boy, there's so many applications. I mean, I have an education background, and so working in a vocational school, one of the things that we tried to teach was interviewing skills. And so being able to leverage a tool like that and giving kids the opportunity to practice and work, and then maybe, having a teacher critique. And, just from a time perspective, for a teacher to kind of sit down and do a mock interview with 120 students that they may have in a block, it would take forever. But this way, they could practice and and sit down and do that interview. And then, then the teacher could just review it and then bring it back and sit down with them and maybe, say, hey, this is what you did great. This is where you need a little bit of work. And then from
Yep.
the HR perspective, boy, I mean, I could see this whole thing. First of all, it's super tough to just get your resume in front of a recruiter. And
Yep.
now, so you're going to have AI rooting out, which resumes
Yeah.
actually get through. Then you're going to basically have a interview with a non-real AI person. And then I'm guessing that will score, how well the candidate did. And then now the HR person is saying, okay, now I only have to look at these 3 out of maybe thousands of different people.
Okay, so I'll tell you the exact tool that I built in this HR demonstration, and then remind me, because the next thing I want to do is talk about this for sales, and I'm afraid I'm gonna go off at a tangent. So first off, I go and I create that mock interview, but before I even did that, I'm gonna have the job description, and I'm gonna upload all of the resumes into the same RAG technology. RAG basically means it's a tool that allows you to upload the technology. It changes the guided truth. So now I'm going to upload all of the resumes, and I'm going to upload the job descriptions. I'm going to use a prompt that basically says, I want you to break down this job description into 10 to 20 equal parts. And then what I want you to do is I want to get everyone's resume, and I want you to score them on a scale of 1 to 10 on how their resume lines up with the job description. And then any gaps, anything that's a score that's less than a 7, I want you to write up drafted an email that has qualifying questions that says, hey, Bob, I see that you applied. These are parts of the job description that your resume doesn't exactly fulfill, but we like that you scored 10s on everything else. Can you help us fill in the gaps here? Now, when they come back, right? So you've done a soft skills interview. When they come back, I can literally create a personalized assessment. This is just like a real quick exam based upon the job description, based upon the resume about where the gaps are. Now, they go and they get an 80 on that test. You know what they do when they get hired? I get personalized training on the other 20%. That's all done through a tool like this. So now HR and onboarding, right, are the same thing.
Yeah.
Crazy,
No, I
right?
love that. It almost is like a form of mentoring. Like, hey, how can we maximize this employee? What skill gaps do they have? Like, they have the tools, for the most part that we like. We just need to, hey, train them up a little bit in X, Y, and Z, and you're getting that right from the start of the interview process, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. And like how many I've just hired people and they fooled me in an interview. They just have. And I've had people that their resume wasn't great, but we needed someone in a pinch, and they did terrific. So like I've been hiring people for 25 years, so I know these challenges. But now I want to flip this and let's talk about sales. That same engine, what happens if I'm going to go and you sell an on location NVIDIA product, right? That
Yes.
basically it's on premises, and now I have AI in my building. What if I basically found the LinkedIn profile of the person that you're trying to sell to, and then I preloaded all of the objections of what he could possibly say, and then you do a practice sales call with that AI before you ever even have the call. I think any time that you have practice, right, you're going to come in locked and loaded.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see the value there. And honestly, we do things like, mock elevator pitches and things like that, just and put it out to our colleagues and say, hey, what did I do
Yeah.
well? What could I do better? Making sure that you really have command of the product that you're talking about, because the reality is you really can't sell something that you don't truly understand.
Yep.
And so having anytime you have the ability, and because some people are shy too, so having the ability to do it with AI kind of takes that away. It's like now I don't have to worry about like one of my colleagues, like, looking at me weird, like I don't know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
you take
So-
that piece too.
So you'll look at a tool like Read AI that's like Fathom, and it's going to record our meeting. And what it's going to do is it's also going to have the camera on, and it's going to tell you, hey, when you mentioned your price to Steve, his nonverbal communication skills were positive towards your pricing, right? So you think to yourself, now I have an AI tool that's basically helping me see the things that I can't see for myself. It's noticing pattern repetition, stuff like that. But you know what you can do the opposite way? Is you could probably fine tune an AI that says, this is where I feel like your sales guy's stretching the truth.
Mm. Yeah, or this is where you lost the deal right here because you suck.
Right? Right? But I mean, like, if I'm being sold something, you almost always think, oh, the power's in their hands. Like, what happens if my AI is like, yeah, his answer to your security question, he was like looking up to the left,
Yeah.
like he might be fishing for an answer. Crazy, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me show you this other tool that I think is kind of cool. Hold on, just another experiment that I did. I was really trying to crack the code on the Turing test. And so the Turing test, I'm sure the people, your audience knows, but this is Alan Turing. You basically think Sir Alan Turing. He basically built the Colossus computer that cracked the code to beat the Nazis. But he was also famous for the Turing test. And the Turing test is pretty complex, but essentially what he says, there's going to be a day in the future where there's going to be an outcome from a computer that's going to be indistinguishable from what we see in real life. All right. And so this is this technology for me, this experiment's over a year old for me, but let me show you this. Okay. To prove my point on the Turing test, I want to run an experiment. I want you to watch my eyes, my mouth, and my gestures. Mis ojos, mi boca, y mis gestos. Mes yeux, ma bouche, et mes gestes. मेरी आंखें, मेरा मुंह, और मेरे इशारे. 我的眼睛，我的嘴巴和我的手势. Okay, now let's take it one step farther. This is me speaking in English. 这是我用普通话说话. And I'm back. It's creepy, right? But it can actually get worse. You see, right before your eyes, I can get old, I can get young, or I could be just plain scary. One thing is for certain. In the age of AI, you will not be able to believe your eyes. So I go and I do this test, Steve, where I go here and I basically say, like, is this guy real or fake? What do you think, Steve?
I don't know. I took this test the other day with you, and I feel like I did terribly. And
most people do.
And I don't remember my answers either. So I'm going to say he looks real.
Yeah, but he's fake. This girl
looks real to me.
Yeah, she's real. How about her? Yeah, she's fake.
Fake. Yeah, I'm going to go fake.
Yeah, her teeth are too good. How about her?
I'm going to say fake as well.
Yeah, it's in the hands. And then this is the one that breaks your heart. She's fake too, but it gets weird when you can just go. See, there's nothing I did there that you can't do with a tool that's $20 a month. We don't even have to go into the rabbit hole of bad actors and stuff like that. But I do this thing, you know how I was showing you the avatar where I talk to the avatar. So I do a lot of the things. And what I found is I used to do this presentation and it was incredibly informative and you would learn a lot. And then I started adding more like jokes and fun stuff into my presentation. And I swear that everyone likes the extra antics more than like, hey, I could do 10 things that are going to help you save time in your job. There were way more dialed into like stuff like that. And so like, I'm literally building one right now where I had that interview and I talk to my avatar and then I'm literally making a version of the avatar where he gets like really sad that he realizes he's in AI for the first time. And then I'm going to use Kling. I'm going to use Kling AI, which is like a video tool. And I'm going to be like, well, don't feel sorry for him. When he's not talking to me, he's living his best life and he's going to wear like thug life glasses. And I'm going to put him like on the top of Kilimanjaro. I'm going to have him like nursing a baby seal. I'm going to have him like in a monastery. I'm going to have him all around the world doing like the most amazing things possible. And I can literally do that in Kling by just hand typing. Like, here's my guy, keep him as the central character, change the setting to, he's swimming in a cave, 1,000 feet. You know what I mean? Like, I could do whatever with it. You know what I mean? And the firepower that you can do just by simply by like thinking it, if you know the tools, it's crazy. And we're at the bottom of the hockey stick shaped curve right now.
So, I mean, in my industry, in the tech world, one of the things that we constantly talk to customers about is security, obviously, of their data. It's, bad actors are everywhere. You just kind of like mentioned it without going into it. But now I want to kind of go into it a little bit because social engineering is the number one way businesses get infiltrated, because we've gotten really, really good at building up, walls, firewalls and things like that, and blocking people from coming in the front door. But now with global marketplaces, people working from everywhere, it gets a little bit more challenging, but always the easiest way in is manipulating people.
Mm.
And I know that I just, read an article and saw some interviews, and really they're talking about families need to create personal keywords or passwords to
Yes.
protect themselves, because if it's literally that easy, if somebody can use a $20 tool
Hmm.
to recreate someone, whether it's just a voice or potentially video. I mean, if you're putting yourself out there, let's say like we are right now, I mean, there's probably enough video footage that someone could recreate us. And so being able to, if someone says, "Hey, I'm in an emergency, I need help, I need money, I need you to, wire me, Venmo me, whatever." How can
Mhm.
we, prevent that? So they're saying like, you need to create this secret password amongst your family, which I've done with mine. Um, but what are your
Yeah.
thoughts there? I mean, I'd like to get your,
Yeah, man. I, I literally have my family. We brought them out onto a football field. I left the phones in the car. I left every piece of technology because even when it's off, it could still listen to you.
Mhm.
We just went out right in the middle of a football field. And so we have that code for our family. And it's like really funny because I did this and I presented it at a guy and he's like, just hope Starlink wasn't pointed right at that football field because like in theory, there's nowhere you can hide. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's more fiction than anything about the Starlink thing. But my point is that we've designed everything to listen to you. Now, the other thing that you have here, right, is like humanoid robots, which feels very far-fetched, right? I mean, it's going to be tested in households by the end of 2025. Imagine this walking, talking, listening machine is just all the time, everywhere, cleaning your dishes and doing all these things, but it's also listening. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like, it's one of those things, right? And so what you have to sort of think to yourself is like the days of true privacy are gone. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, but true.
Yeah. Unless you're walking in the woods, hiding somewhere, like you,
Yeah,
you may never be able to have a private conversation or thought again.
I know. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't really know. I don't really say anything in my life that if the government heard it or whatever, that I would feel whatever.
Hmm.
But knowing that the AI is always listening and always interpreting, what I believe that one of the scarier things is that I believe that the AI is going to be incredibly persuasive, and you could be in your whole heart say no, and I think it's going to know you better than you know yourself, and it's going to find your hot button, and it's going to find like water, it's going to find the weakest part, and it's just going to go there. Like there's this viral thing about how ChatGPT would take over the world, and it was dialed in pretty good because I know how well the technology works, but the AI just starts talking and talking and talking because I don't have to take over the world. You'll hand it to me.
Well, it's funny, their voice assistant is amazing. Um,
Crazy.
I mean, I was just driving to New York, and I really wanted to learn about this new technology that I didn't, maybe have a real good
Yep.
grasp on yet. And
Yep.
for 2.5 hours, as I was driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, I'm obviously focused on the road, right? But I am just having a conversation with
Yep.
AI, and
Yeah.
and she speaks amazingly,
I
and
know.
it's totally perfect, and she doesn't miss a word, and it's
Mhm.
wild. And then I'm getting great responses, and we're just like literally as she's
Yep.
telling me something, and then I follow up with a follow-up question. Oh, okay, now you've
Mhm.
like triggered some new response, and we just literally have this whole conversation like she was sitting right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's getting the large majority of I build these things, they're called app in the gaps. And what app in the gaps are you already companies already know they love the software that they already have. but maybe the AI technology isn't there in it yet, or you wait a year and it's still not dialed in specifically for you. So what I do is I create the AI technologies that you would like to have. And then I look at the APIs in the software that you have to see if I can seamlessly integrate it, or at least download it and upload it or scrape it or whatever, right? Anyhow, the voice technology, we call it TTS. That's one of the number one things that we look at, and it just keeps getting smarter and smarter. There's one called Bland AI, and Bland AI, it's the worst branding ever. It's literally called Bland, right? But it's going to take over phone systems. It can already do outbound calls. It can already take payments. It can already do all of these things. Like, it's completely agentic, and it's going to be really, really hard to decipher whether you're speaking with a human being or not. But the reason why I'm telling you this is they took out the toll booths on the turnpike, and you just go by it. And so my Easy Pass, every once in a while, I get a bill in the mail for like $80. Then I go and I call Easy Pass and I wait on hold for 45 to 50 minutes. I call them up and they're like, hey, I had Easy Pass. You ding me for as if I didn't have it. And they're like, yeah, I see that. Okay, you only pay me $4, right? In the AI world, I'm going to be able to call Easy Pass. I'm never going to wait on hold. I'm never going to be transferred. And it's going to be able to solve all of that simply by talking to a human being that's not a human being. It's just like a voice.
Mm-hmm. No, and think about
Like,
how much time we'll get back in our day. I mean, one of the most annoying things out there is calling customer service, right? It's
yeah,
the wait times. It's speaking to somebody that it's from another maybe country or
yeah,
part of the
yep,
the world, and it's like
yeah.
I can't understand what
I
they're
think
saying.
I've always thought that's hilarious. People are like, you're going to do that. I'm going to talk to some guy from India. I was like, how many languages do you speak? They're like, I just speak English. It's like, this guy's speaking his second language and you're frustrated because he doesn't sound exactly how you would like, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll show you, I'll send you an article. There's literally a technology group in India that is dying to keep all of those phone jobs, that they are literally cloaking human voices, but they are running it through a filter so that it takes the Indian accent out of the way they talk. So it sounds like you're talking to Bob, but you're still talking to a guy in India, because they know, right, that they're on the last breath of being able to keep all of this customer service technology. Like, you know what I mean? You're talking about jobs, those overseas jobs and stuff like that. They're going to either have to it's going to be a race to the bottom to them to try to compete with a machine that is completely scalable.
Yeah.
That like things that you do, like, oh, I could be up by noon. You know what I mean? I could be in at 9, upload all of your knowledge base and be up by noon.
Yeah, no, Chris, one of the things that always amazes me about you is you're constantly coming up with these different software. Where are you finding all the? I'll get a text message, Steve, you got to try this new app, and it's like,
Mhm.
where are you
Yeah,
finding all of it? I mean, this is your
yeah,
world, this is where you live, but I'm really curious, like, because
yeah.
you're on it all
I,
the time.
I'm obsessed with YouTube. I'm just obsessed. It's a problem. I haven't listened to the radio in 20 years. I have YouTube Premium. There's no commercials, anything like that. While I'm driving, I'm just like listening and listening and listening. But I'm dialed into about 5 or 6 guys that are on top of it too. And it's so funny how like I'm at a nerd level where I'm just like, oh my gosh, Llama is training on 2 trillion parameters. I can't talk to anybody other than you, Steve.
Mhm.
Because no, I mean, literally, I'm all alone with this stuff. So
Yep.
I'm literally like, you happen to be the guy that I can be like, oh my gosh, check this out. You know what I mean? But my point is that I'm obsessed with learning in the craft, and this thing is changing every day in every way. You remember, like, we had Windows 95, then we had NT, then we had, what's the one
Remember when ME
where,
came out? It was terrible.
yeah, what was the one that was it Vista, or the one where the image was these clouds and the guy's jumping in a field? Is that Vista? So these things were 3 years apart from each other. You
Yeah.
waited 3 years. Like, I'm getting these massive, massive, massive things, like 5 a day. You know, it's the technology curve is straight up,
hmm
you know?
Well, I mean, the thing is, so one of the things generative AI is so good at is coding. Like we're talking about it from like,
Yep.
you know, content creation and video and doing all these cool things. But the thing that we haven't really mentioned yet is the productivity around coding
Yep.
and what's possible. And and that's
Mhm.
really some of the secret sauce that's there, and being able to, because
Yeah.
I was helping somebody with a website. I used to do, web development back in the day, and but I haven't done it in 10 plus years, right? And so I was
Mhm.
like, this guy was like, "Can you really help me with my website?" I was like, "Sure, I'll help you." So I fire up a WordPress site for him, real simple. But then as I was doing some stuff, I needed some functionality. I was like, I cannot remember how to do this. Like, I haven't done it in so long, and I needed to manipulate the HTML and CSS. And so I threw it into ChatGDP. I told it what I
Mhm.
was trying to do. It spit out the code, told me exactly where to put it. I popped it in there, boom, website. I was, whoa, this, man, if I could have had this 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't even needed Chris.
Yeah. Yes, you would. Dude, if you go into, it's called vibe coding. Vibe coding is this new thing now where you can go into Cursor or Firebase or what out of these things, and you can literally just type what you want your website to be. You can send in a URL and say, this is a website that I like already. Give me the structure of this, and then I'm going to manipulate it to make it my own, and I'm going to want to do this type thing. Like, I have this idea. We do this interview, and then I want to have short videos, and so you would have to watch the whole video and hope you can find really good 40-second spots. And so, like, I was going to just do this thing where I call it like clip share, and I'm going to ask you a question, and then you're going to answer that question, and we're going to build it together as a short. Well, as a test, I'm literally going to go to a vibe code thing, and I'm just going to literally go into Cursor, and I'm going to say, this is the app that I want to build. I want to be able to upload a video and know that I only have 40 seconds left in that video before it's too long for a YouTube short or a LinkedIn short, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And all I want you to do is create a forum where me and Steve can pass our videos back and forth. And it looks like we had this really long, elaborate conversation, but we just created these shorts because it's so lot easier to know I got 40 seconds to answer this than hope to God that the meat of what I'm going to say is really cool. That didn't happen 5 seconds past the timer,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean,
And
you're right.
I could literally create that in vibe code.
Mhm.
Like, boom, here's what I want, create an app, and it'll just go and build it.
So as people have these creative ideas,
Yep.
they're going to actually be able to move on them and say, hey,
Yeah.
I have this great idea. Here's what I want to do. Here's how the functionality should work.
Mhm.
Create it. Boom. It's going to, so the speed, it's just,
Mhm.
what's going to
Yep.
be, like you're saying, what's going to be possible in
Mhm.
just the shortest amount of time is going to be wild.
Yep. And this has been the year for me. Let me share my screen. I'll just show you this thing real quick. So I'm going to be able to look at any org chart. And then what I do is I zoom into those people and I figure out what does a lighting engineer need. And I'm just going to develop all of these little micro tasks that sort of happen, you know what I mean, in that guy's job. And what I'm saying is there's certain things that are very specific to his job, but there's other things that are literally like this. All right. Like you and I have a phone call. It's the greatest call ever. Or I'm having it with Danielle and Tom here. All right.
Mhm.
Now you'll notice that the day of our next meeting, they haven't confirmed the meeting. Then I have to send that email of shame that says, hey, Tom, hey, Danielle, are we on or not? Well, I can just create an agent that has an if then statement that says if the day of the meeting arrives or 2 days before the meeting arrives and they still haven't confirmed, put this email either in my draft folder or automatically send it to them and says, hey, Danielle, do we have to reschedule or not? Or I might get an NDA in my email. All right. What if I just have an agent that has an if then statement says if an NDA comes into my email, right? Cross-reference it against 50 things that are like this list of things that it's like, if this stuff's in that NDA, never sign this email. So then it'll auto draft something that says, hey, Julie, I really want to work with you, but we're going to need to massage the language in section number 5. Now, all of this stuff is going to be built into, like I said, the org chart of every single person. I'm not eliminating people, but I am eliminating all of these tasks that bring no value to their day. Like, do you really love double confirming meetings? But I also believe that the AI is always going to be watching you. Just like those Facebook memories that you never asked for, it's going to say, hey, I'm noticing a pattern here. You double confirm your meetings. Do you want to do that still?
Mhm.
You know? That's what I believe the future of where this is going. Not only are you going to be able to reverse engineer your day and your tasks, I think it's going to be watching your day and be like, dude, I notice a pattern here. Do you want to stop doing that?
I just wonder if we're going to massage this so much that, and we're so productive that maybe it messes us up mentally too, because there's no downtime.
Yep.
Or maybe it creates downtime. So, hey, we could do
Yep.
our work in a shorter period of time so that, hey,
I
whatever
don't
you
buy it.
enjoy, now you have more time for.
I don't buy it. The pattern that I've seen is I got a word processor in 1992. And I remember thinking, I'll never have to handwrite a paper again. And I'm sure millions of people thought that, right? I'm going to have so much time. I didn't have time. I wrote longer papers and I made longer PowerPoints and I made longer reports. It's like somehow we always get onto the treadmill of more. All right. So the technology helps us basically find time in our day and we fill it with just more work and more work. I'm going to show you a graphic that I do in my presentation for that. Give me 1 second. Here's where I believe that people got to live. If you want to escape the treadmill of more, you have to be obsessed with predictive analytics and actual data. And then you have a human that sits in the middle and that human questions everything. Okay? Because if you don't, you're just going to keep making more. You're going to making more. But the good companies are going to figure out, you know what, if I know exactly how much time, how much labor, how many materials, I can dial in everything so that I'm specific with my time and basically these tools give me time back. If not, the trade-off is I'll just keep making more. The other thing and the other reality that we're in is this. And so I stole this from somebody. I don't even remember what their name was. So please know that this isn't my genius, but I go and I have a marketing company. We have great ideas. We have great research. We have great composition. Basically, we write a lot of stuff and we edit and we distribute. Now, most of my day actually feels more like this. I do ideas, I do research, but I write a lot and then I edit and I distribute. Now, AI comes along and it reduces that time. All right. I could put that money in my back pocket or I could worry about the weaker parts of my game now that it's peacetime. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a major thing that I'm saying here is that you have to realize you have about 2 to 3 years left to be obsessed with differentiation. Have to be obsessed with it. All right. Because everyone is going to catch up and they're going to have the same firepower that you have.
Now you mentioned that you're now able to do about 40 hours of work in about 5 to 10 minutes. Can you maybe
Yep.
take us through that a little bit?
So I'm going to have this new initiative here where I help mechanical contractors come up with a new initiative. And their new initiative is that it's $2 trillion total addressable market to get into the data center market. Mechanical contractors do cooling systems for data centers. Okay. Now what I did was I needed a name for this initiative. And so this initiative is called Thermax. But how I got to that is I asked a question. I need 10 possible names for my company. So it gave me 10 possible names and taglines. I picked the first one because I liked it. Then I went down here and I gave it a color set that I really liked. It identified the color set. And then it started creating logos. Here's the logo that I sort of liked. And then I can ask for it on a transparent background. I tweaked it a little bit. And now I have a brand here that's vertical and horizontal. Boom, boom, boom. Now what I do is I go to a tool here called Gemini. And it has this deep research model. So I don't know what questions to ask. So I say, I'm a mechanical contractor with 30 years of experience. I want to run a deep research report on how to break into servicing the data center market. What questions should I ask in the report? The AI gives me the 10 critical things I need to ask. I go into Gemini and I literally put that into the deep research report and say, go off and do this. It comes back what you see on the right, which is 36 pages, a 36-page report. But here's where it gets crazy, Steve. That's PhD level report back in 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, with 277 sources that it took information from. I'm still falling here. Look at all of these things that it took information from. I'm still going. And you can literally go into the document and find out what source it got the information from. Now I take that report, right? I take that report and I need to present it to my board of investors. I go here. it starts building out my slide deck that I would have to do for the investors right before my eyes. It's creating infographics. As you can see here, it's creating generative imagery. It's just building it right in front of me. All right. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Now, I do got to read it and I do got to manipulate it, but think about that big jump. But if you remember, Thermax was a blue company. This right here is not, right? That's purple. In one click of a button, I can go here and it's rebranded right to my brand. All right?
Yep.
What I can also do is just basically say, hey, you know what? I need to promote this brand. I run a company called Thermax, and we need an editorial calendar to promote our content. Please create a table that has the blog name, the keyword I need to go after, and I need to put out 2 blogs a week for the next 90 days. Immediately it's done. Now, I go and I grab this thing here. Please write me a 1,500 word blog on the following. Now I have a 1,500 word blog. I need social media for this content. So I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, I use Facebook and Instagram. Imagine I want an editorial calendar that does one social media message on each platform every day. Please write out my editorial calendar. Day 1, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You'll notice it has the hashtags. Now what I need to be able to do is I need to brand it. So I'll go back in here, and here are the things that are immediately branded. Now I want to go on a public speaking tour. I just found out that I have a speaking gig in Chicago. I have a lecture on Friday and I have a lecture on Monday, so I have to stay the weekend. Please create me an itinerary for a 4-day stay in Chicago. I need you to be able to figure out what hotel I want to be in, but I also want you to create social things like baseball or sporting events, maybe a museum that I might want to see, and some other things. So write me a 4-day itinerary for while I'm in Chicago. Okay, that looks good. Put it in table format. All right, I noticed you didn't have duration. Can you add a column for duration? Yeah, I like what you did there, but can you put duration as column number 1 so it goes duration, day, time? So what I could do, but it screws up the audio, the next thing I could do is I could go here, I could click on share screen. This AI basically watches my screen and would coach me so that if I didn't have my assistant ready to do this, it would be able to coach me on how to do it myself. But let's pretend like I go like this and I go, okay, put that in code mode. Help me draft this email. Hey, Christy, I have uploaded my itinerary for my trip to Chicago. Can you batch upload this into my Google Calendar? I already put it in code mode, so it should be easy. Now, all of that I could have done in ChatGPT, but Christy's been working with me for 13 years. So I wouldn't say the email be, hi, Christy. Fortunately, it did spell my name right. And then when I go down here, I would say your name. So I would say, write those emails again with the following instructions. Now that might look like gobbledygook, but that's what's called prompt engineering. Now the email is properly formatted, sounds like me and my brand, and it has my salutation at the bottom. All right. So that's just a lot of stuff that I just did in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Now, did I read it all? No. Did I graphic design it all? No. But I'm 70% done all of those jobs just right out of the gate. If you are just learning AI right now, right? And I have your competitors, 300 employees working at the speed that I'm doing. How long are you going to be in business?
Yeah, no, that was impressive. And I think it also speaks to that memory feature that OpenAI is just releasing. It's certain things, you've had to, repeat yourself to do. But once the AI knows that, once it knows how you format, it'll know who your assistant is. It'll know, what you like. And then all of that stuff goes away too. So you just get better and better and better every time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the early adopters, it's almost like compounding interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
The early adopters, they're in the game longer, so it compounds earlier, and they're just going to scale better just because they moved first. Crazy, right, Steve?
It's super crazy.
Okay.
And
I mean, I know that sounds weird, but I do this every day, and it's like your kid was like an Olympic gymnast, right? There has to be times where you're just like, holy crap. I've watched her practice every day, but she just did like a triple flip. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's days where you're like, I know she can do it. And I'm still like, pinch myself. My kid just sprinted, hit a horse, did a triple flip, landed on a dime.
Yep.
This is the same thing. I'm like, what did I just do? Like, it's like, it doesn't even make any logical sense because I was typing in plumber near me. Hey, client, do you want to be found as a plumber in Yaden, PA? Right? Like I'd been on this whole journey. I remember how caveman stupid I was. And I was cutting edge back then. You and I were doing things. We were winning awards for your school.
Yep.
Like, you'd be like embarrassed to show it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's why it resonates so much for you, because you know how much effort that used to take and all the work that you had to put in to get the end result. And now you're like, my gosh, that's something that would take me weeks, months. And now I can create it in minutes to a day. And it's just boom.
You ever think that everything that we do is just an idea that I have in my head, trying to get it from my head to your head with clarity? Like, that's in theory. That's all we do as businessmen, is just trying to get one idea to many. And all of everything we do is just friction in between. And we're just chipping away at friction. Right.
Well,
And
think
so, like,
about
where's
how
the
many
guy going?
ideas you probably have, and you don't execute on them because it's like, oh, I don't have the time to do that, or I don't have, it's just going to be too much great idea, but I just don't have time for it. Now, you could probably, in the morning, write down all of your notes on this great idea, feed it in, and boom. But at the end of the day, you have this amazing result, especially as agents become more mainstream. And it's just going to start doing things on your behalf, which is wild.
Well, like the most case in point of that is, so Superhuman, which is an AI, it's an email platform, and this is going to be built into everything. We're not going to be reading our emails. We're just not. Like, we're going to be reading our drafts, because the AI is smart enough to say, look, I have recorded every team meeting about part 8675309. Steve just asked me, hey, when is this project going to be implemented? And I need to make sure that that part number is included. This is the email that I think that you should draft to Steve based upon the questions that he's had, the conversations you've had, and the 2 teams meetings you've had. So all I'm going to be doing is editing the draft. When you think about working, if you're doing it right, the way you and I operate, we stop working and we start orchestrating.
Yeah. You're almost like the supervisor of the AI. It's just, you're just verifying that, yes, you're doing that correctly. Yes, you're on task.
Yeah. I was always amazed. So this is really pathetic, but I used to work at Ruby Tuesdays back in the day. And I always remember, like, I was doing the simplest part of the job, but like, imagine there's 50 tables and they're all ordering. And then, like, to get this right, you got to put on the shrimp at this time, at this setting, and you set a timer for that and stuff like that. And so, like, the food on the left when that's ready to go, that means that the food on the right has to do that. And so, like, these chefs were like orchestrating what had to be cooked at the right temperature at the right time so that that meal came out. So it wasn't like the steak was overcooked because I needed more time to do one of the sides, right? You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things of, like, in theory, when I coach, I'm like, I don't care what tool you use. I want to teach you how to cook. But that analogy goes one step farther. Once I have all these agents, it's just like I'm a master chef, and, like, I've got shrimp cooking over here and I've got steak cooking over here and stuff like that. And the science is just how to orchestrate, how to cook, how to keep it all together, working in synergy, getting the right things at the right time, It's like there's going to be skill sets that we don't even know we need right now you'll judge, like, how good is Steve at his job? Well, he's a great multitasker, organizer, strategist, Yeah. Crazy new normal. Crazy new normals.
One thing that I noticed I believe it was on your website, you mentioned something about a dream session that you do. What is a dream session?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing I do is I do these 2-day trainings. I come in and I teach people how to do the same stuff I did and more on that 40 hours worth of work in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next thing I do is I go and I say, hey, what if I was a fractional chief AI officer in your company? All right. You can't afford me. I'm a minimum $250,000 a year to hire me. If you wanted to hire me right off the street, I'm using an analogy here.
Yep.
But you could use a fraction of my time or a fraction of my team's time. And I'm going to go and we're going to interview you and we're going to say, what are the tasks your department does every day? What are the redundancies? What are the weaknesses? What are the apps in the gap that we could do? What's the personalized training we could do from these people? And what I do is I write a readiness report. And then after the readiness report, I basically do the best we can to implement the AI to try to solve those problems with the dream of, let me just show one screen and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about with that. First off is I go and I identify the roles that are in your company. All right. After that, I'm going to map all of their daily tasks. Then before I ever get started, I'm going to measure how long does it take you to do those things without AI. Then I go and I start to inject AI. I start to do the experiments and we chip away at this thing. Then what I do is I quantify the time savings and the ROI. And on top of that, I look at what's called an opportunity projection. So if I could take a 5-hour job and turn it into a 1-hour job, that's 4 extra hours. What are you going to do with those 4 extra hours?
Mm-hmm.
So in that process, 5 big questions. What's the job? How long does it take to do it? How many people do it and how often? And then how much do you pay them? All right. Usually that's a big number. If I can reduce that number dramatically, now I have big cost savings. All right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should come to my company and do that. Be amazing. There's so much inefficiency. I think a lot of companies have that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still dealing with a lot of enterprise construction companies that are just using paper. And in the AI world, I'm like, take a picture of that, throw it into the AI, ask the AI to sort everything, and it's done. I have something where I have them map out the times that they're going to drive. And then I take a screen grab of their dashboard and I send it to them in ChatGPT. And they just talk to it the same way you talk to the AI in New York. And it's gonna be like, your cost and labor ratio isn't in effect. Why do you think that is? You have 3 other projects that have this thing. Do you think you could buy supplies for one project that you could use on all 3? And he just talks to the data and he talks to the takeoff report.
All right. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time today.
We got to do this again, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any last words for the people out there?
No, I think that we said a couple different things here, but I think that we started this thing talking about downstream AI. What I mean by that is that if you are in a spot as a company and you know that you have to do AI, you do have to make that first leap. And there's a couple different ways you have to do it. Upstream AI is the things that you're doing, Steve. Implementing either the hardware or something like that, that if you have to be super safe, you need to know that you can solve this problem, not for millions, but maybe even $150,000. Mm-hmm. Now your entire company has AI. But giving them a grill doesn't mean they know how to cook. Then they come to me and I teach them how to cook. And then I look at their processes. But you know what? Like, how many companies aren't taking that leap because they're like, it's just not safe, so we can't do it. We can't try.
Right.
And that's where I think our exchange between what you and I are doing, it's a perfect handoff.
Yeah. The reality is it's possible. You just got to get in front of the right experts, right? I mean, there's people here that specialize at you. There's people
Mm-hmm.
like, that do it in the data center like myself and what hardware is required and what all it takes to make AI work behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. You put that 2 together and boy, you're able to do some pretty amazing things for your company.
Crazy,
like
right?
said, if you don't get out in front of it,
Mm-hmm.
chances are, someone else is going to, and you may be on the other side of something you don't want to be.
I mean, if they're doing 40 hours worth of work in 15 minutes, I mean, I know that's pretty much of a stretch, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long before they've lapped you?
Chris,
Cool.
I really appreciate you once again. This was an amazing interview. And I know it really excited me, and this is ever evolving. So I'm sure you're going to be learning new things and bringing new ways to bring value to the businesses. So I'll have you back on soon enough. And to everybody that's watching, thank you so much for joining in. Please, share and like this episode, and then please post in the comments, like, what did you think? If there's something you feel like Chris could bring value, let us know about it. And then I could bring Chris back in and we could have a future discussion. And look for his information in the description. I'll include ways to contact Chris if you're looking for maybe how you could leverage him within your business. I think that'd be a great partnership that you guys could have. So once again, thanks, and I look forward to seeing everybody on the next